Hi, my name is Kyle Carter, and this is my story. I can tell you so much about my life. I can tell you how I was sprinkled as a baby and grew up believing. I can tell you how I found my passion for Christ in college. Or how, during my junior year, the death of my father, friend, and mentor turned me away from faith and onto a path of fear. I could tell you how, thanks to my father's amazing influence, all I ever wanted to be was a good husband and a father just like him. Or how, out of fear, I married someone who didn't share my belief in God, and how I let mine become stagnant as a result. I could also tell you how after college, the harsh army life with back-to-back deployments, a son whose birth I was never able to experience, and immaturity on both sides just destroyed our family. I could tell you how, after 5 years of this, in my selfishness and frustration over our difficulties, I began carrying an online relationship with someone else. I could tell you how my wife began staying out late at night and going to bars and clubs. Or how I would have to pick up the pieces of our son's broken heart, wake up in the middle of the night at 2 a.m. crying for his mommy because she wasn't home yet. That online relationship let me take things online and make a horrible mistake one night. I could tell you how even though I turned disgusting out, I severed the relationship and tried to rekindle things with my wife. Or how I found out on Valentine's Day that she had been carrying on a relationship with a family friend this whole time. I could tell you how I admitted my own infidelity and suggested marriage counseling, but she was done with everything. I could also tell you how, after 6 years, our broken marriage left a poor 4-year-old boy wondering what happened to his family. I could tell you how, still lost in my own selfishness, I sought out another and got engaged before the ink was even dry on the divorce papers. I could tell you how much guilt and baggage I brought into the relationship because I didn't take the time I needed to heal. I could tell you how insecure she was, how she continued to put down those around her and played the victim to ease the guilt in her heart that she was unwilling to face. Or how I was so desperate to find love that I ignored and made excuses for all of those things. I could tell you how, in her jealousy, she influenced me to isolate myself from my family. And even worse, my poor son, whose heart was still aching and trying to recover after the divorce. I could tell you how my own irresponsibility with money, along with her demands for all the things she felt entitled to, led me to even greater debt. I could tell you how degrading and verbally abusive she was and how it drew the same ugly and abusive behavior out in me. I could tell you how she would physically attack me when we worked ourselves into a rage. Or how one night, after about the 15th time, I finally lashed back and put her in a headlock to get her to stop. Not my best moment. I could tell you how she demanded I work 3 jobs to pay for all the debt. Or how the stress of this affected my performance at work and how I lost the great job I moved down here for as a result. I could also tell you how, in the midst of all of this, my sister was diagnosed with MS. But because I chose to isolate myself from my family to appease my wife's jealousy, I was not there as a big brother for her, nor was I there for a son to a worried and suffering mother. Sorry. I could tell you how my wife demanded I work with our pastor on my issues, yet refused to do the same. I could tell you how, as I worked with the pastor and grew closer to God, she and I grew further apart until she finally decided she was done and left me for another man. I could also tell you how relieved I was once she was gone, even though now I was completely alone. I could also tell you how humbled I was when the mother, sister, and son I had temporarily abandoned were right there waiting for me with open and loving arms when it was all over. Sorry. Gets me every time.
It's alright. We'll cut a little bit of it out.
Yeah, that's alright. But that isn't really the point we're here. And I don't want to talk about that, even though I kind of already did. The point is that through all of this, God was doing an amazing thing. He was breaking me. Or rather, He was letting me break myself. You see, to truly find faith in Him, I had to lose all faith in myself. So here I was, 2-time failure as a husband, failure as a brother and a son, a horrible failure as a father, holding a heart in my hands that was completely ripped to shreds, and wondering what happened to the dream of a family that I'd always wanted. I realized that while I believed in him, I had been completely ignoring God my whole life, and instead of following his slow and winding path around all of the pitfalls, I just made a beeline for the destination and fell off the cliff. Twice. I asked God, was I really that stubborn that I needed to go through all that? And then listened sheepishly to his reply of, well, yeah. It was finally to a point I could look back and understand the importance of holding on to faith, hope, and love in all things, because it keeps the fear, despair, and hate at bay. Finally understood the importance of going to him constantly and humbly in prayer, even if it was just to thank him for something, because when I did, I began to see his hand more and more in my life. I began to understand the importance of diving into his word daily, because it's like a shower for the mind and heart. It washes away all of the unclean things that try and creep into the world. And how many days can you go without a shower and not smell like nasty stuff? Am I right? Began to understand the importance of surrounding myself with regular Christian fellowship, because it keeps you grounded in reality and accountable in your faith. And that's when I found you guys and fell in love with the church family here. I can honestly say I see his light shining bright in each and every one of you. I even discovered I could be truly happy and at peace in him, regardless of my situation, because as long as I held tight to faith, hope, and love, as long as I continued to look out the positive window of life and search for the silver lining, as long as I constantly sought to understand God, myself, and others on a deeper level, an amazing thing happened. Peace bloomed in my heart, and from that peace came joy and contentment. You see, happiness isn't a goal or a destination like this world would have you believe. It isn't something you have to chase or pursue. Happiness is simply a state of mind that springs from a tranquil heart that's resting in God. There's only one thing missing, however, that prevented me from finding true peace and happiness in him. I was still holding on to guilt and sin, and I could not believe or see how I could ever find the strength to completely and truly let him take control of my life. Of course I prayed about it. I made plans to get fully baptized, but I knew it wouldn't mean a thing unless I could let go of the sin in my life, and more importantly, forgive myself. Otherwise, how could I truly believe that Christ could forgive me? Then, just a few weeks ago, a miracle happened in my life. It was a unique answer to the prayer of strength I had been praying for. Through this miracle, I was able to see a vision of what my life could be if I just let go and fully committed to him. Suddenly, I found the resolve and the motivation to do just that. And when I did, that miracle filled me with feelings of worthiness and confidence. I began to believe the potential that God saw in me. Hearing him and actually listening to him felt so easy. The desire to hold on to sinful things I had been gripping my entire life just seemed to fade away. I felt like I had stepped from the hell I had been living for years right into heaven. But just as quick as the miracle appeared, it was gone. And that's when God's 2x4 struck me square in the face. I was still aching from him rolling over me about 100 times with that Mack truck, and now he's trying to beat me with the 2x4? I mean, who does that? I cried out to him, "Why did you have to hit so hard?" And he answered, "Hey genius, why did you have to have such a strong grip?" Suddenly, I was able to completely let go and step fully into the light of his love. I understood and related on a deep level how Christ's heart just cries out in anguish for us every time we turn away from him. It was like he had been standing behind me with his hand on my shoulder my whole life, silently crying and whispering, "I died for you." But I would ignore him and try and put something else on the throne of my heart, only to discover that every time I did, it just didn't fit. It hurt and didn't belong there. Over and over and over again I had done this. I felt like such an adulterous prostitute jumping from one love to the other when the true ruler of my heart was watching in pain and agony. It was then that I realized that he hadn't been the driver of the Mack truck or the welder of the 2x4. I had. It wasn't really my heart that I had done the damage to, because it had belonged to him all along. He had bought it long ago. Yet, he gave me the freedom to choose my own path. and was always there to pick up the pieces when it ended in complete failure. I now understood how completely dependent I was on him. I felt the resolve spring to life in me to always hold on to that and solidify his rightful place in my heart. So, here I am, feeling like boot camp is finally complete, and like most soldiers, I certainly didn't think it was much fun at the time, but hey, look on the bright side, it only took me 31 years to finish. Better late than never, I guess.